I have been to Kenya 3 times to report on hunger. I want to understand why, despite a prosperous economy and lots of foreign aid, year after year millions of people still don't have enough to eat. After all, this is a country that is in many ways booming, with 5% growth, foreign investment in oil and fertile land, ambitions to become a financial and high-tech hub, and a new president who's one of the richest men in Africa. So why are so many children going hungry? And what can be done about it? While the land around Nairobi and to the west is thriving, the rest of the country has been left behind. In 2011, nearly 1 in 10 Kenyans needed food aid. 500,000 children and pregnant or breastfeeding women suffered from acute malnutrition. That was during a particularly bad drought. But even in a good year, in some areas, 1 out of 4 small children do not get enough food. In Wajir and Turkana, 2 provinces in the north of the country, hunger has become a regular part of life. Most people here tend herd animals. They are used to dealing with droughts. But in recent years, life has been disrupted. Climate change, coupled with growing population, nearby conflicts, and resource scarcity, means that the hardship from droughts, which used to occur once a decade, now come every few years. Animals, already weakened from the last dry season, become sick or die.
So the livelihood here in the community is livestock, and if the livestock died because of the drought, definitely people get starvations and they become malnourished.
Some of those children end up here, in the pediatric ward of the Wajir District Hospital.
Yeah, sometimes we receive a very bad children with very severe malnutritions, with also complications of malnutrition are there, other medical complications are there. Sometimes they become very, very wasted, very severe. They also they present with dermatitis, skin infections. Others becomes very severe pneumonia. Others becomes very severe diarrhea with dehydrations.
When 2-year-old Naima Khalif arrived at the hospital, she was so severely malnourished she was close to death. After weeks of care, she is active and healthy.
Malnutrition is not a disability, something that you can cure. So once they get cured, they become a normal person.
Every year, international donors spend millions of dollars on emergency food assistance, yet the cycle of hunger continues. Osman Abnoor is an elder in Kila Ale village in Wajir, where many children and elderly people are malnourished. They depend on food aid. He told us that people in the village have lost their livestock due to drought. The only water source is shallow wells, which get recharged by rain. When there is drought, the wells run dry. Then there is no water, the animals get sick, and there is no milk for the children. In this recurring cycle of neglect, disaster, and emergency relief, what becomes clear is that the underlying problem is not food. It is a lack of the most basic infrastructure for a healthy society: water, sanitation, and roads. Water is necessary not only for drinking, but to provide for animals and to irrigate crops. Sanitation is critical to health. In Wajir, 60% of shallow wells are contaminated with feces. The lack of roads prevent people here from developing a self-sustaining economy. As things are now, getting basic supplies is difficult, and many animals die on the way to market.
A drought is made by God, famine is made by man.
The real problem in Kenya is a political one, according to John Gathongo, a former government official turned anti-corruption activist. These regions have been largely neglected by the central government in Nairobi, he told us. They lack political power, so they don't get investment. That leaves them vulnerable.
Drought is big money for a corrupt elite because it gives you the opportunity to import maize and other staples into the country and make a killing off the backs of hungry people. That's an important factor in the reason why we always have this whistle being blown by the humanitarian agencies every couple of years.
To use the most simplistic example, what we've often done is we've treated a malnourished child, but we've returned them back to their household that was food insecure before and put them there, and is still food insecure. So that level of vulnerability remains the same or left unaddressed. And so by the time the next shock comes around, you have many people that are still in a very vulnerable state, and can very easily, then you can have millions of people tipping over into a crisis.
And yet, year after year, donations of food have far outweighed money spent on water and other infrastructure. While international donors have lately taken notice of the water issue and are starting to invest, past efforts to improve infrastructure in sub-Saharan Africa have faltered. Auditors blame poor planning, management, and oversight. In the end, many experts say that foreign aid alone is not enough. Real change needs to come from within Kenya.
Kenya government doesn't need international assistance in feeding itself. There's a deliberate lack of preparedness. So on the part of the elites, Kenya collects enough in taxes to feed its people, but the preparations are not made.
More than half of Kenya's population lives below the poverty line, and overall 10 million people are chronically food insecure or undernourished, not only in rural areas, but also in the country's rapidly growing slums. Until everybody in Kenya has access to water and other basic infrastructure, the cycle of hunger will continue.